I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everyone for attending this evening and watching the recording. All board members are present except for Ms. Freight, she is excused, and then our student board rep Avery Powell will be arriving late. With that, we do have a board recognition. So I need a motion to thank the Milan Area Schools administrators as recorded in this resolution that I will read.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Murray.
So moved and supported to thank the Milan Area Schools administrators as recorded in this resolution. Whereas energetic and inspiring school leadership is essential if Milan schools are to prepare students for success both during their K through 12 careers and afterward. And whereas school administrators serve as educational visionaries, instructional leaders, assessment experts, disciplinarians, community builders, facility managers, special program administrators, and guardians of various legal, contractual, and policy mandates and initiatives, they are also entrusted with the educational development of young people. And whereas school administrators set the academic tone for their schools and work collaboratively with teachers and parents to develop and implement a clear mission, high curriculum standards, and performance goals. And whereas school administrators play a vital role in the success of students by creating school environments that facilitate great teaching and learning, as well as continuous school improvement. And whereas school administrators act as the liaison between the school and the community it serves, ensuring that parents and taxpayers are aware of student and school achievements. And whereas the celebration of Michigan School Administrators Month would honor elementary, middle level, and high school administrators and recognize the importance of school leadership in ensuring that every child has access to high quality education. And whereas during this month, we join with educators, parents, and students throughout Michigan to raise awareness of the importance of educational leadership. We also recognize and thank the hardworking school administrators in Milan schools who set exemplary examples of service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Milan Area Schools Board of Education recognizes our administrators' commitment and proudly thanks them in the name of the community and the Milan Area School District. Be it further resolved that the Milan Area Schools Board of Education strongly encourages all members of our community to join with us in personally expressing our appreciation to our administrators for their dedication and devotion to their work. So, yes, thank you to our administrators. It's always fun walking with them in the homecoming parade. They have many fans along the parade route, so that was a fun activity. And, all the work that's been done over the summer in the reimagination of the schools has been excellent work. So, other comments in regards to our administrators?
I'd just like to echo everything you just said. I think we're very fortunate to have the team of talented administrators here in Milan that we have.
Any others?
Just quickly, I know this is a board resolution, but I just appreciate all that the team has done this year and that they do every day. It's something new every day and something different. And we're also blessed to have a phenomenal staff that works below them and with them. And it just makes for a very strong district. So we appreciate their work. Just so everyone knows, their gift was that to not come tonight to be recognized. Their gift was a night at home with their families. So I will get a copy of the resolution to them and let them know that you voted on it. But we intentionally did not invite them this evening.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
I'll just add one thing that I have always really appreciated about our administrators, both when I was serving as an educator with them as, my bosses, and then also now watching them work from this vantage point as a board member. They are all just so highly relational, and they prioritize relationships with staff, relationships with students, relationships with parents and stakeholders, and that I think is truly what drives our success as a community. And I just really appreciate all of them for leading that work, because I think that's really where the strength of our district resides, is in those relationships. So thank you to all of our administrators for that.
For sure. Ms. Gutierrez.
Mr. Sislo. I've been really humbled over the last several years as a parent watching the leadership come out from our administrators across buildings throughout all of the different permutations of learning and teaching throughout the pandemic, and have really admired that leadership and that ability to be agile. And then most recently with the reimagination of Milan area schools, to have the ability to see our administrators' vision really come to life is really exciting. And so to see that combination of both strong leadership and strong vision within our administrators, I think is something that we should all be very grateful for, and I certainly am. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Farrow.
Yeah, I just want to echo what everybody has said. I also want to add that that our building administrators are visible, they're responsive, they're professional, and I feel very thankful that they continue to work for Milan area schools. So thank you very much.
All right. Any others? All right, it's been moved and supported to thank the Milan area schools administrators as recorded in the red resolution. Ms. Heika.
Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 6-0.
All right, next up on the agenda in the area of communications and community engagement is public comments. A reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you'll be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? All right. On to routine matters for approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 27th, 2023.
Moved by Rosenleacher.
Support by Gutierrez.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 27th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 27th, 2023. Ms. Heika?
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
All right. Next up is the minutes of the regular meeting. The minutes of the regular meeting, first closed session of September 27th, 2023. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, first closed session of September 27th, 2023.
Moved by Murray.
Support by Rosenleacher.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, first closed session of September 27th, 2023. Again, these minutes are found in the envelopes. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, first closed session of September 27th, 2023. Ms. Heika?
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Also, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular session, second closed session of September 27th, 2023.
Moved by Gutierrez.
Support by Murray.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and second closed session of September 27th, 2023. Any concerns? It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, second closed session of September 27th, 2023. Ms. Heika?
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heika.
So moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Any comments? It's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Ms. Heike.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Great. Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2024 resolution to levy summer taxes as included in attachment B.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Heike.
So moved and supported to approve the 2024 resolution to levy summer taxes as included in attachment B. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just briefly, this is an annual resolution that you pass. It allows us to collect the local portion of the school taxes, 50% in the winter and 50% in the summer, for the jurisdictions that do that. It's very helpful for us because it keeps our cash flow a little bit more balanced throughout the year. And the jurisdictions are already sending out summer tax levies for other portions as well. Again, this is just an annual motion that you have to approve so that we can continue to do that.
Any questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2024 resolution to levy summer taxes as included in attachment B. Ms. Heike.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
All right, next up in the area of finance and operations is the 2023 annual audit. We have a guest, Dan Merritt, CPA, Senior Management from Raymond, and he's going to walk us through the audit. Again, this is a first reading for the board, such that we can take the information and look into it further. But he's going to walk us through a presentation and of what he found during the audit. So, Mr. Merritt.
Red light on is good? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Good evening, everyone. Maybe I'll hold for just a second here, let the projector warm up so everyone can see the presentation. As previously stated, I'm Dan Merritt. I'm your audit manager and have been for a few years. In fact, I've been working with Krista since probably about 2014, I believe. It was my first year working as Monroe ISD's auditor, where we worked together previously. So today I'm going to be going through just a brief PowerPoint presentation where I'm going to summarize all the information that we present in the financial statements and in the SAS 114 letter, which is the board communication letter. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about those two long documents, but I'm going to try to hit the key important points here in this presentation. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm just going to briefly introduce all of the team members from Raymond who work on your audit. I'm going to walk through a brief list of board communications, important things that you need to know about the audit. I'm going to spend most of our time here giving some high-level financial results from the year, and then we'll briefly talk about upcoming accounting pronouncements, everyone's favorite and most interesting topic. So, who's the team? Daniel Clark is your engagement principal. I'm filling in for him today. I know it's very confusing, Dan and Daniel. Daniel is the engagement principal, which means that he signs the report and takes responsibility and technically is your auditor under law. I am the audit manager. It means I do most of the work. No, I'm kidding. But I'm the one here with Krista actually for field work. Tracy drafts your financial statements and Brendan's sort of my number two here on site. So that's the Raymond team. So what do you want to know about the audit? Well, the thing that you want to know most is you hire us to tell you, are these financial statements reliable? Are they good? Can we trust them? And then each year we give you an opinion, and the best thing you can hope for is an unmodified opinion on those financial statements, which we intend to give when we issue these financial statements next week. They're in final draft form here. They are expected to be issued on Monday, which will put you well in advance of the November 1st required deadline from the state of Michigan. I should also mention that we are issuing unqualified opinions on the major program testing we did for single audit. If you were to open your financial statements and skip all the way to the back, you would find the single audit, which is the federal funds audit of the school district, which is a review of the school district's schedule of expenditure of federal awards. The district had one major program this year, right? We have to pick one of the many federal programs and awards, and sometimes we pick 2 or 3, depending on a complex formula that you don't want to know all about. This year we tested the Education Stabilization Fund, which is your ESSER dollars, and had no findings, no comments, no issues with that schedule or with the way that the school district spent that federal money. The district adopted one new accounting pronouncement in FY23, which is GASB 96 for subscription-based information technology arrangements, which I spent an hour talking about yesterday. I'm sure you don't want to know everything about it, but the long and short of it is the GASB in its wisdom has decided that there are a lot of contracts out there that governmental organizations enter into for subscription technology that benefit the district over a number of years, and that they think you should reflect these things on your balance sheet. Hence, you now have in your capital assets footnote some information about subscription technology arrangements that you are entered into for multiple years at a time. Again, these aren't the one-offs. They're not the 1 years that you're renewing one at a time and you can get out over into. This is just stuff where you say, we signed on for 6 years and we're going to get benefit for 6 years, and the GASB says, great, put it on your balance sheet. So we did. Krista spent a lot of time and effort getting us that information and had a lot of fun doing it, I'm sure. Part 3, we're required to audit the accounting estimates made by management. These might include depreciation on capital assets. They might include compensated absences. They might include the estimates used in a pension fund, though of course you're in MIPSers, so you have to use all of their estimates anyway. And there are tons of disclosures about those in the financial statements. We deemed all of those reasonable, had no issues with them. We had no difficulties encountered during the audit. Krista runs a very tight ship. It's always a pleasure working with her. Brian and Ryan also provide some information for the audit and provide a great tone at the top for internal controls for your organization. So we have no issues or difficulties encountered during the audit and have not since I've been participating in the school district's audit. There were no material misstatements, no uncorrected immaterial misstatements, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no management letter comments this year. We in the biz call this a clean audit. Technically, a clean audit is just an unmodified opinion, but a squeaky clean audit is one where you also have no findings. So good job to the district this year on having no findings or deficiencies. That's a great result. So now let's move into talking about some of the financial results. Hopefully you can see clearly up on the screen. This is looking at the district from a government-wide perspective. What do I mean by that? When you're looking at just your general fund, when you're looking at your budgets, you're looking at a current financial resources perspective. That's all the short-term stuff. You don't get into the capital assets or the long-term debt or you just think about what are we paying for this year, what are we doing this year? And that's great. That's the primary focus. That's what you should be focused on. But right here, we're going to look at everything just so we have a perspective of what everything is, including all the long-term stuff. Your cash and cash equivalents, you dipped into that about $300,000. That's normal fluctuation, right? Cash goes up and down and often varies due to other factors like how much did other organizations owe us, how much did we owe other organizations. All in all, if you look at big picture, your cash balance stayed pretty consistent, just well within the normal variance on that one. Your receivables went up this year compared to 2022, and that was primarily due to two things. You had a lot more in sort of your state aid receivable at the end of fiscal 23 due to a number of factors, including categoricals and foundations. But remember, that's your July and August payments. That's all the stuff that comes after June 30th. You also had some additional federal draws that took place after year end for things that were expenditures that were in the fiscal year. So again, this is just timing, right? This is people owed us money for things that we did during the fiscal year. Net capital assets went down. That should make a lot of sense to you guys because you haven't spent a lot of money on construction or new equipment recently. Of course, you did a number of years ago, and so you have a healthy capital asset balance, but you just have normal depreciation on those capital assets taking place. So it's normal that you would just see a sort of downward trend on that until you decide you need to start building something new, and then that number will start to go up again. Then you have these wonderful things called deferred outflows. That deferred outflows on refunding occurs when you refund long-term debt. And you say the book value of the debt that we're getting rid of is different than the book value of the debt that we're taking in. And sometimes you end up with an accounting entry. So you have a deferred charge on that refunding that sort of gets amortized. You don't really care. It's a non-cash thing. It's a book thing. We made it up. Don't pay a lot of attention to it other than until you refund more debt, right? That number is just going to keep going down towards zero as it's normally amortized. You also have deferred outflows in your pension and your OPEB. Oh boy, how do I explain these? Well, they're kind of like layers. And basically what it is, you notice your net pension liability, and we'll show this in a moment, is going to jump up and down every year depending on how your investments perform. And that's because your net pension liability, your net OPEB liability are how much do we think we're going to owe all of our retirees till the end of time against how much do we have in assets held at MIPSers to pay those obligations. And the market performs this every single year. And the GASB says, well, hold on, you got to smooth that. You can't just recognize it all into your bottom line in 1 year. So you end up with these deferred layers. And if you've done any accounting in college, maybe you remember they talked about deferred tax assets. You could like hold on to things for a little bit and recognize it over time. That's what's going on there. Again, it's a non-cash thing. It's an accounting thing. But when you see those big numbers in your government-wide statements, that's what it would be. Liabilities and deferred inflows. Now we're talking about what do we owe other people. For the most part, your accounts payable stayed pretty flat. You had a small state aid note payable at the end of 23, right? You had some activity. If you go in to look into the notes in the financial statements, you see that there's some activity. You took out a bunch of state aid and then you paid it down during the year, right? And then at the end of 22, you had nothing. At the end of 23, you just had a little bit. So it's all financing. It's short-term financing activity. It's not long-term like long-term debt. Next line item is long-term debt. You didn't issue any big new long-term debt. You didn't issue any big bonds, notes. Of course, you had some school bond loan fund activity. But for the most part, you just paid off the existing debt that you had. So big picture, that number continues to creep down a little bit. That makes sense in comparison to what's happening with capital assets, right? You haven't built anything new, and hence you haven't taken on any big debt issuances. Okay, so that net pension liability, net OPEB liability are next. And you notice that both of those went up. Why'd they go up? Well, the state's fiscal year is September 30th. Yours is June 30th. Your pension obligation is measured as of the September 30th before your June year end, so September 30th, 2022. If we all think about how'd the market do during the year between October 1st, 2021 and September 30th, 2022, it did bad. So everybody's net pension liability and net OPEB liability went up. Next year, it will get better. We already know. So not much you can do to control that, really. It's sort of outside of your purview, but good things to know what's happening, what your net obligations are. Again, those deferred inflows, those are changes both in investment and in assumptions over the years, and we could really get into this, go back a number of years and talk about what those are, but again, they're layers. One of them is being amortized into a credit, one's being amortized into a debit. If you wanted to know exactly what those are, I'd be happy to help peel them apart for you, but it might put you to sleep. All right, net position. The net position of the district is sort of, it's equity, right? It's what is the district worth? What is the district invested in? Well, you notice that the biggest chunk of it is negative unrestricted. You say negative unrestricted. How can our equity be negative? Oh, it's that net pension and net OPEB liability that we're sitting on. That's what makes it, if you were to try to sell off the district today like it was a business, right? It'd be worth negative because you're trying to sell this huge pension obligation, which of course you can't. The other biggest component is your net investment in capital assets, right? That means that most of the value of the district is tied up in its buildings and the other equipment that it owns. So that's just sort of a big snapshot of what the district's equity position is like. Here we have a quick graph describing our net investment in capital assets and our restricted net position. Restricted is like grants and other things like grants that have external restrictions on them. Restricted net position has held very steady for the last couple of years. Normal activity, that's fine. Net investment in capital assets continues to creep up as that debt gets paid off. Again, we say it's a net investment, so it's assets less related debt. You pay off the debt faster than you amortize the asset, so your net investment in the capital assets goes up a little bit each year. This is helping us think about the net position, and that bar on the top is thinking about what would our net unrestricted position be without our OPEB liability and our pension liability, and on the bottom it's what would it be with our pension and OPEB liability. What is it actually in the report? It'd be much better, it'd be much less negative if it wasn't for that pension and OPEB liability. So that's what that graph represents. Again, these things have held pretty steady over time and aren't of any particular concern. The next two slides, I'm just going to try to give you a historical look back view on what's happened to your net pension liability. You can see, you remember these are listed as like 2023, 22, 21, 20. If you want to think about it in your own head, a better way to think about it is let's roll it back 1 year, because remember, we're thinking of September 30th the year before, 22, 21, 20, 19. That's the investment year that all this activity is related to. So you see that one kind of good year right there, 2021, the year leading up to September 30th, 2021. We had a lot of investments, saw huge increases in value, so net pension liabilities went down. We went, yay, and then it got worse again, and so now we're back to normal, and it's still kind of sitting there. Hopefully, this net pension liability should start to go down over time as MIPSR starts to get better funded. They've updated rates in the last 10 years. They've updated assumptions. Part of the reason it looks so high right now is MIPSR has gotten a lot more conservative in the actuarial assumptions that they use. They no longer use like an 8% rate, thinking that they'll get 8% back in their investments all the time. Now they use, I think it's like 6% now to discount it. So they've gotten more conservative. It's more realistic, and hopefully with these more realistic assumptions, and they've updated the rates of contributions, we'll start to see that net OPEB and net pension liability go down maybe by the time I retire, something like that. Next slide, net OPEB liability. Again, you can see in 2022 or investment year 2021 that dip. But you say, why this sort of like downward trend in the net OPEB liability aggressively, but not in the pension liability? It's primarily related to two things the actuaries tell me when I go to those exciting accounting and actuarial conferences that all of you want to come to with me. One is people aren't using as much healthcare as we thought they were going to. We projected that they were going to use a lot more of the healthcare system than in the last 2-3 years they've really been using. COVID really kind of put a shock to the system, and people just stopped using the healthcare system as much as they used to. Two is healthcare rates were rising really, really, really fast in the mid 2015, 2016, 2017. And the actuaries kind of said, all right, well, I guess they're going to keep rising really, really fast. And they built those into their assumptions, right? And then they've kind of leveled off. Is healthcare expensive? Absolutely, yes, it is. Is the cost of it still going up? Yes. Is it going up as fast as we thought it would? No. So we've revised those assumptions, those estimates. Hence, you see that net OPEB liability start to go down. It's not as bad as we thought it was. That's a good thing for everybody. Revenue versus expense, government-wide level. Again, this is the whole picture, everything. We see that in 2023, as with 2022, we added back to our bottom line. Remember, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because remember, all of our OPEB and net pension stuff is mixed in there. So it's really hard to get a good picture of how are we doing with what we can control when looking at this picture. But at least it's to the good for the last 2 years. So we're happy about that. We'll take it as a win and move on. Let's get down to the governmental fund level, because this is what we all really care about, and think about how's revenue doing across all of our governmental funds. Not just the general fund, this is all of our governmental funds. Well, federal revenue this year is up. It's not going to stay up. That's primarily, of course, due to the ESSER money that the district spent and received and spent in the last year. I think you've got like $500,000, maybe a little bit less in 11T to spend in 24, something like that. Something along those lines, maybe a little bit less than that. I'm ballparking it, just looking at the CFA earlier. So that number is going to go down. Your federal money is going to go down. Every school district's federal money is going to go down in the next 2 years. Next year, maybe a little bit. The year after that, for sure, it's going to go down. Next line in there is your local revenue. That's in the middle. That's your property taxes and everything else that's not state, right? And so there are two things driving that number up, because again, we're seeing revenue go up on that local line. Property taxes are one of them. Two is you guys got a little extra Act 18 money this year from the WISD, so that's driving that local number up a little bit. I said your property tax values are going up a little bit, and you got a little bit of extra Act 18 money. I think it was a one-time grant that the WISD gave out this year. So you got a little bit of extra local generated dollars that are kind of driving that number up, maybe a little bit more than you might see it next year. It'll probably flatten out next year, is what I'm saying.
Act 18 is the special ed reimbursement.
Yeah. That bottom line there, oh, I'm sorry. I've mixed up our federal and state lines. Our state line is at the top and our federal line is at the bottom. Because you see the state line also jumped up. Both our Fed and our state dollars jumped up from last year, but our state dollars, which are, I'm sorry, the one at the top, jumped up even a little bit more aggressively. You're not going to see, this is just the revenue side of it, so this is a little bit weird, but the state gave out a big grant this year in one-time ORS money that you had to record as a revenue and expense. And you say, oh my gosh, if you're probably familiar, UAAL money comes every year. They gave you an extra one-time this year, which UAAL money was weird. It's basically the state saying, well, we want to pay down the pension liability because it's huge, but it's your job to pay it down because you're the school district and the net pension liability belongs to you. So we're going to pass you dollars and then you have to pass them right away to ORS. We can't send them directly there because then it would imply that it's not your liability. So they send it to you and you send it on. They gave you extra money for that this year. So even though it doesn't help your fund balance, because we're just looking at revenue lines, it's jumping up this year because of that one-time contribution. Finally, let's look at everybody's favorite numbers, general fund, right? We can see that in the last couple of years, general fund has jumped around a little bit, but the one thing you can notice this year is that you've got more revenue and you've got more expense, right? And then most of that is due to spending on federal grants like ESSER, right? You got to spend it to record it. So you see that's a little bit artificially inflated this year. Again, the bottom line impact was very flat. So you budgeted pretty accurately. You said, we're going to get this much in revenue, we're going to spend this much. You're almost right on the money. I mean, to within like $41,000. That's, I mean, on a $33 million budget, that's well within the margin of error and pretty darn good budgeting, if you ask me. Finally, general fund coverage ratio. This is if we take our unassigned fund balance, how many months of expenditures could we cover? Basically, what's in the bank, right? Now we're not talking about cash. It's your fund balance, so it also includes things like receivables and payables. So if we net everything that everyone owes us and we owe them, how's our bottom line doing against how many months of expenditures could we float with our bottom line? And the answer right now is about 1.3. So you're staying in a pretty decent looking spot. Now the GFOA recommends you have about 2 months of fund balance on hand, and most fund balance policies sort of reflect that. They say we try to have something around 15% on hand. Why? Because that's roughly 2 months if you do the math. So you're a little bit underneath there, but you're still well within stable. Certainly there's no issues. You're just a little bit under where you've been in previous years on general fund balance. So no concerns, no problems there, just, historical trend.
What would you say a concern? Well, where would a concern be if it was less?
I would say if you dip inside half a month, you're probably running thin, because then you're running one payroll cycle. I mean, if it was me, I get nervous inside of a month, because then that's essentially 2 payroll cycles.
Okay.
If you dip inside one payroll cycle, then you're like, we're running real thin on cash flow potentially to try to even make payroll. So that's one of the things you want to be careful on, and not try not to time the market too much. Now you can, I'm sure Krista has that well in hand. There's no danger of not making payroll, right? That's part of what that state aid borrowing is on. I don't want to sound any alarms here or anything like that, but generally speaking, if you can bump that up just a little bit, that'd be a great thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Finally, upcoming accounting pronouncements. There's not a lot to be worried about here. The last few years, we've been worried about leases. We've been worried about SPIDAs, because those are a lot of work for Krista and the accounting department and us, even though they don't provide a lot of value to you in the financial reporting. There are only 2 upcoming GASBs. You will have to implement GASB 101 for compensated absences, but it won't be very hard. So thank goodness I don't have to spend too much time talking about this slide. There's not a lot of change to be worried about in the next 2 years. So now the GASB is currently working on 3 more standards that will cause us headaches. So hopefully those come out in 2027 or later. Any other questions on things that I haven't addressed? All right, great. Well, I've put everyone to sleep, and I think that's me for the night. So thanks very much for having me, and thank you again to Krista for all your hard work during the audit.
Thank you, Dan. Like I said, this is a first reading for us, so if we do have other questions as they come up, thank you, Dan, for presenting. Great work to Krista and the accounting team. It's phenomenal to receive a report like this. We greatly appreciate it. So, other comments in regards to this for this first reading? All right.
Oh, I should say one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt.
No.
The report's expected to be final issued next Monday, so by the time you have the next board meeting, you'll have the final issued report and be able to accept it.
And when we get the final report, I've asked that they provide just what the changes were from the draft. And it's more than likely, it's just going to be filling in some of those date blanks, and there's not going to be anything material, but I want you to be able to look at one sheet and say, here are the 12 things that got finalized between the draft and the final. That way, if you've looked through this one, you won't have to spend a tremendous amount of time looking through the second one. You can just look at those items.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've already compiled that list of changes. It is very minor. So,
Cool. You're excused.
thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
All right. Next up in the area of learning environment of culture, I need a motion to approve the membership and co-chairs of the 2023-2024 Sex Education Advisory Board, known as SEAB, as provided in attachment D.
Moved by Farrell.
Support by Rosenleacher.
So moved and supported to approve the membership and co-chairs of the 2023-2024 Sex Education Advisory Board, SEAB, as provided in attachment D. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just quickly, you have that list. Part of the reason we're doing this year, and we don't do it every year, is we hadn't had any new members for a while. We did have a couple of students that moved on, and we had a couple of community members who moved on. So we did put some new people on the committee, just so you know how they were added. If you'll remember, last year we did a big community search for anyone that was interested. We then rank ordered them within their categories, and on that sheet it explains the categories. And luckily, we still had a few people left on that list that had been rank ordered randomly. We drew ping pong balls out and randomly ordered them. As I called those folks, the first couple who I called on the list said yes. And so we still have a couple more, but I would say that survey is now 2 years old. So if we need to add again next year, we will probably do a new community survey seeking volunteers just to kind of refresh it. But I just want to make it very clear, those positions are sought from the entire community, and then they are randomly selected. There is no way that there's any special treatment for anyone getting onto that SEAB board.
But there are requirements.
Yes.
Could you
Yep.
speak to that?
Yes. Let me find the attachment. So yeah, it has to include parents of children attending our school district. So they do not have to be residents. They have to have students in the district. It has to have educators. It has to have local clergy. It has to have community health professionals. At least half of the members must be parents. And if you look at our list, exactly half are parents who have children attending in the district. And then a majority of those parents also cannot be an employee. So I believe we have 16 members, 8 are parents, and only I think 2 or 3 of those parents are employees. So all of our numbers are balanced. Everything is within the law. The other piece to that is that we have to have 2 co-chairs, and one cannot be an employee of the district. And one of the people who was on the committee and was a co-chair just has some other things going on in her life, and she stayed on the committee, but she did not want to be the co-chair. One of the new people that joined the committee, who was also a healthcare professional, volunteered and was interested in being co-chair. So the co-chairs are selected from the committee themselves, and the group itself selects those co-chairs. So Nicole Kenzel is one of them, And then we have one of our new parents who took on the other co-chair. The members don't necessarily have to be approved by you, but I think it's good that they are. But the co-chairs by law have to be approved by the Board of Education. So I just thought it was best just bring the whole list. You can see the whole committee and see all of their qualifications for the different categories, and that way you know that our Sex Education Advisory Board is in line with all state laws.
Any questions or concerns? All right. Definitely continue to appreciate all the great work that Ms. Kunzel does in regards to this committee, and look forward to her reports to us as they come forward. So. It's been moved and supported to approve the membership and co-chairs of the 2023-2024 Sex Education Advisory Board, SEAB, as provided in Attachment D. Ms. Heike.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we return to communications and community engagement and back to public comment. Just a reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? All right. Next up is our student board representative comments. Ms. Farrell.
I would like to congratulate the Code Red Robotics team for their first place win at the Grand Rapids Girls Competition, and the boys varsity and JV soccer teams for their wins against Lincoln. And then I'd like to wish good luck to the boys varsity soccer team because they're entering their postseason competition. They just won their first district game. And the PSATs for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors are next Wednesday. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Next up, Assistant Superintendent comments, Mr. McMahon.
Yep, thank you. I have some grant updates for you. That's been a focus of my work here the last couple weeks. The consolidated application we just found out yesterday has been approved. That provides us just over $200,000 in Title I, Title II, Title IV expenses. Title III is through a consortium that's not been approved yet. That's through Washtenaw County. We do another consolidated app with Washtenaw County for that. The ESSER 3 and 11T applications that was talked about just here recently tonight, they've been amended to cover all the final expenses throughout the rest of this fiscal year. So that's in a position that's good to go. The Section 35A5, which is called the Additional Instructional Time Grant, has been submitted. We've done this a couple years. I request roughly $50,000. We usually get around $20,000 to $25,000, and we put that towards paying for highly qualified parapro literacy instruction at Simons Elementary. So I expect about the same, $25,000 to $30,000. A new grant called Section 67F has been submitted, and Christina Barber at the high school helped me with that, counselor at the high school. There's a new program. It's the FAFSA Challenge program. We've applied for $8,000, and the whole Section 67F is around getting more students to complete the FAFSA application. So we're in for that one. There's also been a number of new grants that have been announced the last couple of years, and also like last week. So we're playing catch up. There's so many, in fact, that other curriculum directors and grant operators in the county, we've started a spreadsheet because it's too many to even keep track of right now. But I'll highlight some of the ones that are like kind of our next focus in terms of like due dates. One is called Section 23G. It's known as the Michigan Bring Kids Back Grant. We are assuming, some of these we know finite amounts, some we don't. This one I'm assuming $150,000, and that's supposed to go towards tutoring or anything to address learning loss. That's the idea of that money. We don't have an amount. You just submit a budget and then see where it falls because it's a competitive grant. There's a Section 31AA grant that will, it's a 2-year grant. we have it for a second year, but this year's application will cover $200,000 for mental health and another $200,000 for student safety. You don't have to necessarily split it 50-50. That's the idea, but there's some leeway there, so we have to get that application together and in. There's a lot of moving parts on that one. Section 61C, this is for CTE, which in our case means ag ed. That is roughly $150,000. It came to us. Ryan Rowe at the ISD helped secure that grant from the state. So we are putting together a bid for, in the name of approximately $150,000. And then just announced this week is 61S, which is potentially another $50,000 for capital improvements towards CTE, which again for us is ag ed. And then there's another one called Section 107A, and that's going to give us upwards of $100,000 to go towards adult education. And that's in addition to 107, which is another $100,000 that we normally get. And Carrie Mink and Connie Cox help run that application. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire right now in terms of grants. And there's a whole other list that some we may or may not qualify for. I'll bring those to you as we learn more as we go. There's a couple that I'm drafting right now. I haven't submitted yet, so I'll share those with you. And then otherwise, I did submit 3 more board member reimbursements for the training courses. So we got that covered. That's it for me.
That's a lot. Thank you for staying on top of it. Those are all excellent amounts and excellent news for our ag program. So,
Mr. Sisto.
yes, Mr. Farrell.
I have a quick question for Ryan.
Yeah.
Are those funds anticipated for this fiscal year?
Some are and some are over 2 years.
Okay.
The top of my mind, the 107A, that 100,000 for adult ed is supposed to be for 2 years. The 23G, Michigan Bring Kids Back, that's 150 for 2 years, assuming 150 for 2 years. That, if you remember, we did a 93C application. I had to present on that one. I'll have to present on this one too. That's one of the stipulations that you get public input, which I can do in a presentation at a board meeting. And that was the one where we covered the math interventionists at Simons. I've been told by Michigan that you can just slide that over. So I'll do another presentation. We're going to try to fund that position for 2 more years. That's the idea with that one.
Thank you very much.
All right. Superintendent comments, Mr. Gearbaugh.
Thank you. A few things to share this evening. One, Milan Middle School received a grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield to support healthy communities and schools. Specifically, their category was engaging middle schools through Project Healthy Schools. The middle school received $2,000 and will be using those funds to support suicide prevention education activities for students and staff. Milan Area Schools currently has 2 paraprofessionals completing their student teaching as part of the county's Para to Teacher program. If you remember, we're now in cohort 5, but we did start a program that allows paras who have some college under their belt to go back and finish college and end with a special education teaching certification. The last piece of that is to do their student teaching, and we are very proud of Mrs. Bowie and Mrs. Kukuyet, who are right now student teaching, one at the middle school and one at the high school. They're doing a great job, and I believe the county-wide, the first cohort is about 15 to 20 parapros, so that's 15 to 20 special ed teachers that our county alone will be putting into the pool of potential hires. And we have 4 more cohorts behind them, each between 20 and 25 students. So it's been a really good use of our Act 18 money. We pay for the entire program for the parapros, and they continue to make their parapro pay because they're working and the classes are at night. And part of it is we pay them their parapro pay rate while they're student teaching so that they don't have to give up their salary during that semester where they student teach. So it's a really nice program. I'm excited that we have 2 in this first cohort, and just congratulations to them. I know they're working hard. The interesting thing is you have to be with a teacher consultant who's certified in the area that you are getting your certification in. So they are both paddock parapros, and one's at the middle school and one's at the high school. One of them loves the new age group, and one of them is ready to go back and work with a different age group. The interesting thing is your certification is K-12 when you get it, but you have to be with a TC that's certified in the category you're going to be certified in. And so where we had those was middle school and high school, and they really wanted to student teach here instead of going to another district. So again, if you see either of those folks, congratulate them. And I will say for Mrs. QQ yet, it's really a return. She was a teacher in, I'm almost positive it was Romania. And she came here and she's been a parapro. And so now she's going to be able to realize and come back to be a teacher again. And so it's just really going to be an honor for her. For those that know Dennis McComb, our former superintendent, he will be undergoing brain surgery on October 16th. They are going to, my understanding, it's go in and remove some of the tumor and leave behind some radiation / chemo in the void that they create, hoping to continue to shrink that tumor that he's been living with. So just keep him, Yvonne, and their family in your thoughts next week. The district's 911 critical incident maps are now in their final stage of creation. We've had several back and forths, and they've come out and toured the buildings. They had to go into every nook and cranny, basements, crawl spaces, roof accesses. The nice thing is when these are done, these maps will then be shared with all of the 911 agencies in this entire area. And what it does is it's now a digitized map of our buildings with all of our room numbers, all of our hallways labeled, everything labeled. And if a 911 call happens at one of our buildings, the officers in the police cars will be sent that map and it will come up on the screen in their car. And so they will know our building inside and out. So if they get a call that we need somebody at D103, that map's going to come up. They can find D103 and they know right where they're going when they get to the building. Those are paid for with a grant by the state of Michigan. Not all districts took on that grant, but we did. And it's going to be really nice to get those maps to our 911 dispatchers. The district has started the process of transitioning our website from Blackboard to Final Site. During this transition, the district is going to work diligently and stay focused on making our website more friendly for our users on phones and handheld devices. That's our major focus. So as we pick what style of website and as we make all of those decisions, everything that group is deciding is based on how does this work on a handheld device. So we're trying to do everything we can to make it as user-friendly because we know that so many of our community members and parents are now looking at that website on a device, not on a computer. And so that is our primary focus as we go through that work. Another reminder that on Tuesday, September 26th, the Milan administrative team hosted a Zoom webinar about reimagining Milan area schools 24-25 and beyond. The team shared important information about some changes coming up in Milan area schools, including the reconfiguration of grade levels. Following that presentation, the team did answer questions. A recording of that Zoom webinar and the Q&A portion is posted on the district website. I do want to let everyone know it's very important that you go watch that presentation and understand the why behind the changes. But the changes coming up in 24-25 involve moving the infant and toddler program from Simons to Paddock, moving second grade from Paddock to Simons, moving fifth grade from Simons to the middle school, and moving adult and community education from the middle school to the high school. There's a lot behind this and a lot of important information. There's a lot of thought, and it's really to help smooth the transitions from building to building. It is important to let community members know that there are going to be 2 in-person sessions held for questions and answers. On Monday, October 23rd at 6 p.m., we will be in the Simons Auditorium, hoping that questions there stay focused on pre-K through 4th grade. And then on Monday, October 30th at 6 p.m. in the middle school librarium, we hope that those questions and answers can be focused on 5th through 12th grade. Again, we recommend that before anyone come to either of those Q&A sessions that they do go out and watch the presentation, as it provides a lot of information and answers a lot of basic questions. In that light, last week I met with the 2nd and the 5th grade teachers to begin planning for their transition to new buildings next year. The teachers were positive about the move and they asked some good questions. We will be meeting with this group regularly to discuss their needs to help facilitate a smooth transition. They already thought of a couple of things that we had not thought of, which is exactly why we're getting them involved so early. Perfect example, they don't want tile on the 5th grade doesn't want tile floors because they still get down on the floor with the kids. So we will be carpeting those 6 rooms at the middle school. Just something I hadn't thought about. So that's exactly why I'm going to take them over for a quick 45-minute visit to the new building next week. And then on the November 1st PD day, they're going to have a little bit more time to go and see those rooms so that they can really start to assess if there's any other needs that they might have. Next, we will be looking at our special education staff, our reading and math interventionists, and our instructional coaches. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at how we can redistribute them to make sure that we continue to provide all of those great supports that we have in place now for all of our grade levels. Last, I did attend the legislative breakfast hosted by the Washington Intermediate School District on Monday, October 2nd. Several legislative bills that will affect public schools were discussed. Needless to say, I did voice my opinions on those bills. The legislators present did appreciate my comments, and they did ask some follow-up questions. And I will tell you, one of the main points Ryan made very clear tonight. I said, we need more dollars in the per pupil foundation because the number of categoricals and grants are killing small districts. You heard the list, and that's like a third of the list. And there's a lot of work behind these. It would just be so much easier if they would wrap some of those into the per pupil and we just get the money to use the way we can best use it for our kids. So that was my big push. And so I didn't even know Ryan was going to give quite that detailed of an update, but it fed right into this comment. Bigger districts where you have 3 or 4 people handling grants, it's a lot easier. It's tough in small districts. And Ryan's doing a phenomenal job. Ryan and Krista are doing a phenomenal job on staying on top of all of them because you don't want to miss 100,000, 150,000. And so I just appreciate all of Ryan's work. And I know he and Krista spend a lot of time together working on these. It's great for our kids, but it would be easier if we got the money in a little bit more simple fashion. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Board member comments.
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Rosenleisure.
I guess I want to start first. Krista, thank you. It was exciting to hear what a clean audit you've had yet again. So really appreciate all of your hard work. I know it's not easy and you get pulled in a lot of directions during this time of the year. So thank you for that. I'm very excited about the Parent Teacher program and very excited for Miss Bowie and Miss Kukuyat.
Yep.
What a great opportunity for our people to have the opportunity to stay employed and live their dream of becoming a teacher. So, these are people who they're passionate about doing this work. So we're so fortunate to have them and look forward to future para-eds moving into that train. And then finally, Brian, thank you for your advocacy with our legislature. I think it's the amount of work that Mr. McMahon and Ms. Hendricks has to do to keep up with those grants and frankly just jump through a bunch of hoops. It takes away from all of the good work that they could be doing. And it's not that they're not doing good work, but it just takes time away from focusing on our why and being there to support our learners. So really appreciate that and appreciate Krista and Ryan for all of their hard work, finding every penny that we can get to support our learners. So thank you.
Thank you. Others?
Mrs. Islam?
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
I just want to again thank the building administrators for their hard work and their efforts. The resolution that we adopted represents just a small piece of our deep appreciation for all that you do for Milan area schools, our students and our staff. So thank you. I also want to extend a thank you and a congrats to Krista and Brian and Ryan and the team in the district office with regard to the audit. In my own professional life, I deal with audits at a much smaller level, and it is a stressful time. And so I just can't imagine going through an audit with a budget that exceeds $30 million. And to have a audit with no findings, unmodified, no material misstatements, no questions with regard to internal controls, speaks volumes to the quality of people that we have working within our district. So I want to congratulate Krista and thank you very much. I know I say this every meeting, but I know I drive you crazy, but I appreciate your hard work. Um, I have another statement, or I guess a question for the board to consider with respect to the DEI committee. I'm not sure if we need to make that a standing committee and when an appropriate time would be to commit resources to the committee. And that's just my own personal request, is that we take a look at that at some point. I also want to extend my appreciation to Connie Mink for the invite to the FCI graduation on November 2nd. Unfortunately, I have a conflict and I will not be able to attend, but I want to extend my congratulations to the graduates. Then one final thing with regard to some state legislation, HB 4752 passed and was signed into law. This is a law that received bipartisan support to allow retired educators to fill temporary vacancies and still continue to receive the retirement pensions. I think this will help districts in the future, especially those that retire from teaching but have the desire to continue coaching high school athletics. And Brian can probably speak to that a bit more in detail, but I thought that was a really good thing. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sparrow.
Just quickly, yes, that law actually was passed specifically for coaches. It will allow some other things to happen, but the dollar amount of $15,100 a year that they can make. So basically what happens is they retire. They must have 30 days away from the district. Anybody that retires has to have 30 days away from the district. And there can be no guarantee in place of employment after that 30 days. If anything is discovered contrary to that, they lose their pension and their health care retroactively. So they do have to have a 30-day clean break, no promises, no guarantees. You can then come back and make $15,100 each calendar year. So if you think about it, if you retire in June, right, the end of June, you're out for July, you can make $15,100 in August through December. And then you can make another $15,100 between January 1st and when 6 months is up. And then after 6 months from your retirement date, you can make an unlimited amount. The only stipulation on this is a superintendent cannot do it to come back to be a superintendent in those 6 months. They specifically in the law picked out superintendents not being able to do it. Not that I had any intention of doing it, but it's just interesting when they pick one employee in a district. Yeah, so some other good legislation that will help and would have helped one of our employees in the past, honestly. So glad that they did take that on.
Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
I'll start by congratulating Milan Middle School on their Project Healthy Schools grant. That's very exciting, and I know that I'm sure Ms. Kenzel will have hands in directing how those grant dollars are used. But I think that's a very exciting opportunity for our middle schoolers. So congratulations and thank you to those who worked on that grant. And I want to specifically extend some thanks to, obviously our entire administrative team here at Milan, as per our resolution tonight, but also just to mention the leadership and the collaboration that's happening amongst our superintendents in the Washtenaw County area, because for those of you that may not know, all of the para to teacher, grow our own programs, that really was a grassroots effort that began here in our area with Naomi Norman specifically and a number of other leaders in our area, and it's now just gaining traction all across the state and is getting recognized now nationally. So I think it is extremely exciting that we have teachers or soon-to-be teachers who are participating in this opportunity here, and that our students and our communities are benefiting from that. But I just can't express enough how valuable that leadership and that voice has been, and the ripple effect that it's having throughout our state and nation. So thank you for engaging in that work. I'll echo Mr. Farrow, the congratulations to our graduates at the FCI. I also will not be able to make it on November 2nd, but you all will definitely be in my thoughts, and congratulations on all of your hard work. I'll close. Mr. Fair, thank you for raising the DEI committee. That has been on my heart, and it hasn't really had the opportunity to come up at previous meetings recently. But I think it's appropriate. Today is National Coming Out Day, and certainly LGBTQIA issues are not the only thing that our DEI committee does or should focus on. But speaking of grassroots efforts that are vital and critical to our community here in Milan, that work was being done ad hoc and unpaid by a bunch of passionate leaders and educators in our district. And I think that it would be the next right step for us to memorialize that and make it official as something that our district supports and funds in whatever way is appropriate to do that. That work deserves to be compensated and in some way, and needs to continue. It's vital to the progress of our district. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you. I too would like to deeply congratulate our graduates at the FCI. I'm not able to attend either. Unfortunately, that is in the morning, and I'll have to be at work and teaching at that time. But I think it's a real testament to the ability to continue your education in many circumstances, and I just really commend those individuals and send them my most heartfelt congratulations. I'd also like to send my congratulations to Mrs. Bowie, and who I've always known as Miss C. She's been a para in my daughter's classroom for many years, both truly wonderful individuals, passionate individuals, and I really have great admiration for those who can continue to go and take night classes after a full day of working, especially with littles. That is no small feat, and our district is very lucky to have them in our classrooms and to be able to have them as student teachers in the coming semester. So congratulations to them. Of course, our paras work extremely hard, and they are going above and beyond with bettering themselves and learning additional knowledge and skills to be able to really be experts at their craft and their field. And then finally, on the topic of paraprofessionals, I want to note that I currently have a family member who is employed in the district as a paraprofessional, and so therefore I'm declaring a conflict of interest regarding compensation and benefit matters for paraprofessionals. Thus, as long as my family member remains employed as a paraprofessional, I will abide by Board Policy 0144.3 regarding my conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. The conflict is noted. Thank you. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Laika.
I also want to congratulate Krista on another clean audit. That is no small feat. So I appreciate all the hard work that you've put into ensuring those audits are clean over the last few years. So I just want to recognize you and let you know I see all the hard work you're doing. So thank you. I also want to congratulate all of our FCI graduates. That is also not a small feat. And when I ran the second time, I talked about the transformative nature of education and how that changes your whole life, and this is a great first step in changing all of their lives. And so I'm very proud of them for taking advantage of the opportunity and working really hard and getting to this point. I also want to congratulate our Code Red robotics team on their win this week. And I want to congratulate one of the, I don't want to say her name, but one of our students on that team also won a scholarship while she was there. She had to participate in an interview, and I think she had to write an essay or something, but she also won a pretty substantial scholarship as part of her participation there. So I want to congratulate her. She knows who she is. Her mom knows who she is. And congratulations to the boys soccer team on their win, and good luck on all their postseason upcoming the upcoming postseason. And as Ms. Murray mentioned, today is National Coming Out Day. I don't know if everyone knows, but this began in the 80s in the midst of the AIDS crisis as a way of providing a safe space and encouragement of people to come out to help fight the AIDS crisis. But for allies like me, I like to consider myself an ally. It's also an opportunity for us to announce our allyship. And so that if someone would like to participate in the National Coming Out Day and they need a safe person to do that to, for our community members, I'm a safe person and I would love to hear your story. So thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thank you. Back to the FCI, I always like to make sure that people know that that's the only high school within the federal prison system across the entire United States that has a high school as part of part of a penitentiary. So it's a valuable program. We're glad that we're able to continue that and provide those students with a bona fide Milan High School diploma. So it's a point of pride that we're able to do that and being the only one in the nation. And yes, continued thanks to Krista. Thank you for the hard work and the clean audit. Then in regards to, we had some conversation with the Greater Milan Area Community Foundation. They're also in the midst of grant season, so I've written a few letters of support in regards to the Milan Middle School Robotics Program, and then the middle school is looking into an electronic sports club. So they're looking for some funds from the GMACF. We're always grateful for all the support that they give to us in regards to that. And we're also going to be meeting them soon in regards to scholarship funds. So always great, all the support that GMACF gives to the school system. And the mentions regarding the DEI committee are heard, and I will commit this board to figuring out how to uplift that and figure out how to formalize that as we move forward. So, any other comments?
I just have one.
Yeah, Mr.
quick-
Farrell. Sure.
One quick question.
Yeah.
In our financial audit, we have funds assigned for Harkness. I'm not familiar with
Sure.
what it
I can
is.
speak to that real quickly. So Mr. Harkness was a huge benefactor of Milan area schools. And upon his death, he left us a sum of money. One of the first thoughts with that was a grow your own scholarship, as far as awarding a student who was interested in continuing being an educator, and how we could grow somebody that's interested in that and come back to Milan. So that's where that fund sits. So we need to formalize that.
Okay, so my question, an additional question, sorry, is if we choose to utilize those funds, is there anything that we have to do to formalize moving those funds away from the assigned fund balance?
Yeah, Mr. Gerber, I could speak to that.
If the board decides that they want to create a scholarship, in my opinion, the best thing to do would be to create that scholarship through the GMACF. And then those funds would just be basically transferred to the GMACF and put into a scholarship. That would then take them off of our books. And that is something the board does need to consider taking action soon. The money's been sitting there for over a year now, and we need to look at getting it somewhere. The money came with no criteria from Mr. Harkness. So you could spend it on a project, you can spend it on anything. I think the board's original thought was something that leaves a legacy is better than a one-time expenditure. So I think that's why they were leaning towards the scholarship. So if that's an interest, I think let Mr. Cicillo know, and that scholarship committee of the board could meet with the GMACF. They put together a couple-page contract. We put the money into the GMACF and it's done.
But is it also possible that we not give the fund to the GMACF and run the scholarship through the board and the scholarship committee?
We could. I'd want to look into some of the issues of keeping that money in our accounts. It just gets a little bit harder for us to manage, because that money's not invested. And
That's
so
fair.
if it's not invested, it's not earning money, and so you would deplete it over time giving scholarships. That's the nice piece of having it in the GMACF, is they manage those funds and it develops more spendable each year. And so that's one of the reasons I would look at that recommendation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the info.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we should definitely recognize he was a lifelong Milan resident, and was always whenever you heard gave anonymously, it was usually Mr. Harkness. So I probably that was his middle name, Don Anonymous Harkness. So, any other comments? All right, I will need a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heike.
So moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies. And just for everybody's awareness, there will be no further business when we come back into open session except for adjournment. So that's where we're at. Any other questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 81C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies. Ms. Heike?
Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Motion carries 6-0.
And we're going into closed session at 8:16. Right, we return to open session at 8:43, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:44.
Perfect timing.